It's the diet and it's the lack of exercise. That's really what it comes down to.
Kevin has passed away. And if you saw my live yesterday, I think I was just in a state of, I don't know what they call cognitive dissonance. Like I was lashing out. I was afraid. I was in so many places because I just didn't want to believe it was true.
Are you ready? Hello everybody, Manny Brandon with Manny's Fitness Fortress, the citadel of power. Kevin Samuels was a very controversial figure, but he spoke the truth. Where any other psychologist, dating coach, or mentor would tell anybody who's out of shape that's dating, smile at the guy, sit at the counter, go give him a Google eyes at the bar, put on nice clothes, dress better. Kevin delved into the real problems. He said the first and foremost barrier for dating or finding a life mate is your appearance. And the truth of the matter is, our African Americans lead the world in diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, obesity, and our women are 80% in those categories. Across the board, 80% of black women are unmarried, 80% of black women are unwed mothers. Okay, Kevin didn't say this to step on anyone's necks, they're just facts. Now, after all that, he gave solutions to all of these problems. If anybody of any other ethnicity gave solutions to a problem, all these marketing tactics we see on TV, we would applaud that. Okay, everything that Kevin Samuels has ever said regarding black women losing weight, getting in better shape, to attract better men, to attract better life partners, to get a better job, to live longer, everything he's ever said has been said before in the past, but it fell on deaf ears. But because the way that he said it and addressed it was abrasive, it made us stand up and it woke us up. It was callous. It made people listen. He had to be shocking like that to get people's attention. And sometimes, in one of my favorite movies, Seven, with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman, Kevin Spacey says sometimes you can't just tap people on the shoulder anymore. You have to hit them with a sledgehammer. Classic line. And that's what Kevin Samuels did. He woke us up. He's repaired and rejuvenated so many marriages. He had a conglomerate that brought couples together, which you're going to hear about later in this segment. So guys, please listen to the entire video so you can understand and know the real Kevin Samuels.
Now tonight, a Houston attorney and mentee and good friend of Samuels is on the factor. That attorney, as of this evening, has been appointed the family spokesperson. But we talked to him before that development. Dennis Sperling talks about Samuels' impact nationwide.
I got to know Kevin because I have a podcast, Dennis Sperling on YouTube, and having become very, effective at what I do. He popped up on a mutual friend's podcast and we began to talk. He then invited me to his Facebook room where it's called The Mix, and it's where you get couples together and and that's actually how I met my fiance, ironically, but that's how I met him. And he and I just kept in contact over the past 2.5 years, and we'd start working together. But his main thing was getting couples together, getting people married again, telling women, hey, you know what? This society that we live in has caused you ladies to become narcissists.
And I'm going to play the devil's advocate with this a little bit, right? Kevin Samuels, if he was super nice and supportive of us, nobody would have listened to him. Honestly, he was controversial. He knew how to get an audience and he knew how to get people to listen. I can't tell you how many Kevin Samuels videos and interviews and stuff I've watched just because it's compelling. So in order for him to actually draw in his audience, he had to be compelling. He had to go all the way to the other side to make sure that you listen to him. But the thing is that sprinkled in this negativity that he had, there was some some, tokens that he would put out there, and hopefully people were able to take those tokens and utilize it in a positive way. He was able to capture our hearts and make us question a lot of things, even if we didn't agree with it.
Okay, let's address that. What they're calling negativity is women coming on the show and saying, I deserve the best, the cream of the crop, because I am a queen. Not every woman is a queen. If you're a ratchet, cursing at your children, spending $500, $600, $700 on your nails and weaves every month instead of putting money and putting food in that child's mouth and establishing money, taking it where it belongs, you're not a queen. If you're not taking care of the household, if you're not a traditional woman, the conversations that Kevin Samuels had, it was women wanting traditional men. I want them to open the door for me. I want him to provide for me, be a provider, a protector. That's traditional male behavior. Traditional men, 60s, 70s, 80s, early 90s. But women today, a lot of the ones that came on Kevin Samuels' show, and when I say a lot, I mean like 90% of them, they don't want to be traditional women. The business owners, they're after that bag. There's more women than now ever before going to college and getting degrees. That's fine. But when you throw that in front of a man's face because he's making $40,000 a year and you're saying, I can't date you, you're below me. These are the types of women that were coming on Kevin Samuels' show. So when he addressed them for trying to cut him off on his podcast and overtalk him, yes, then he got assertive. That negativity, if that's negativity, that's just called being respectful and requiring and demanding respect.
And to overvalue yourselves, you got 3 kids by 3 different men, you're 150 pounds overweight, you're not going to marry a millionaire. You should talk to that plumber or that electrician or that hardworking guy who you can build a life with, because as it is right now, here in America, we teach the men that they should undervalue themselves, and we teach the women that they should overvalue themselves. And that was this basic message.
Truth is hard to swallow. It's hard to swallow. I left him on red. Because I didn't want to hear the truth. I didn't want to be pushed.
So we got Dr. Angela Jones joining the ladies of Girl Talk here on The Factor Uncensored tonight. Glad to see you, Dr. Jones.
I'm happy to be here.
This is the first person I've seen who has died or who has passed of notoriety where people are actually glad he's dead. I've never seen anything like this.
Kevin Samuels was a very controversial person, right? He made sure to stir the pot, and not only stir the pot, he stirred the pot to change people's minds in regards to how they see Black relationships, Black women, and our value. I mean, he would rate women by number, and he would diminish women's value in a lot of his podcasts, in a lot of his videos. Now, there were some times where he actually did say some positive things, and he did kind of create an environment for people to actually start talking about Black families, Black wealth. So I think that's the good part.
Okay, let's address this. Devalue rating. Women would come on Kevin Samuels' show. He would say, okay, they're coming on voluntarily. Said, what would you give yourself? Fresh face out of the shower, no makeup. I'm an 8. A lot of them would say 9 or 10. Okay, let's face it. We all have guys, my friends. We all rate women. She's a 10. She's a dime. Whatever. If you're a 10, what is Beyonce? What is Kelly Rowland? What is a 30-year-old Halle Berry? That's what his point was. It was like, okay, listen. It's okay to say I'm adjustable 6. I'm just above average, or I'm cute. 6 is cute. But they're coming on saying, I'm not getting checked on by men. Men aren't checking for me that are this status. What kind of man do you want? How much does he need to make? This, that, and the third. About $90,000 to $150,000. These are the figures that these women were giving Kevin Samuels. He said, well, how much do you make? 30, 40,000. Why can't you take a man that makes 60,000, 40,000, 45,000? So when they, became defensive about that, got in an uproar, started becoming defensive on his podcast, he would say, listen, a 6 is not ugly. It's an adjustable 6. There's things that you can do to make yourself more attractive. But don't try to overvalue yourself, put yourself on a higher pedestal because you're not getting the man that you think you deserve. You've been out and about in public venues, and if guys that are those high value men wanted you, they will be checking for you.
Brutal honesty. And I guess it's perspective in that case.
And the women, we weren't the prize.
And Jasmine, the last time we talked about Kevin Samuels on this show last week, where he said,
If you have made it to 35 years old and you're unmarried, you are a leftover woman.
you didn't mince any words. You said you didn't like him or anybody who liked him.
Right. Yes, I did, and I still stand by that. That's my opinion. But what's going on regarding his death? How people are kind of everyone's entitled to their perspective, right? Like even that interview, I got feedback from others, and I feel that Kevin Samuels gave his perspective, right? I feel like his mission was to become a character, which he was, and he played the role. I do think that his mission was to get his message across and his perspective to the masses. He was able to accomplish that, so I feel like he lived within his purpose.
I mean, like you said, depending on what lens you're looking through, a lot of it was just all negative.
Okay, this is what I'm talking about. These are opinionated statements. To me, depending what lens you're looking through, there are no lenses. It wasn't all negative. What they wanted to hear, what they were hearing is what they did not want to hear. I don't want to be told sometimes, Manny, there's certain things you can do to train better. You're doing this too long, you're doing this too much, you're not doing this enough. But in order to grow, in order to learn, you have to listen to someone that has more knowledge than you. And that's the thing, a lot of us, you know, in the African American community, we have a lot of pride and we're very stubborn at times. And that stubbornness leads us to think that truth is cruel. Truth is cruel. You know, there's no truth seekers today. And that's the thing, a lot of it was not negative. A lot of it was really hard to swallow truths about African American community and African American women. How we fall into the pitfalls of media and just the whole family, from welfare to single parent households. And many of the women that he talked to that were the culprit of these conversations were women that grew up in single family households, single parent households, and they themselves are single mothers. You need that male figure, that testosterone presence in the household, whether it's an uncle, a brother, a father, to show that young woman how to be a lady, to show that young man how to be a man, how to grow up to be a man. And that's what's missing. That's part of the problem. And he addressed that as well. But these are the things that you do not hear about.
To me, with not just Black women, but even just minority women as a whole, what we have to deal with on a daily basis, if you have a platform to uplift your queens and to talk positivity into your queens, yet you're, demoralizing them, you're talking bad about them, you're putting them in a negative space, I really and honestly cannot have a positive opinion about this individual. God bless his soul, but just because of the person that he was as a whole and the things that he talked about, I want to see somebody using their platform like this to uplift us and to talk good about Black men.
Okay, let's address all of that. Kevin Samuels talked to a myriad of Black women on his show that were 30, 27 to 35, gorgeous, one or no children, cooperative, listened, didn't try to overtalk them. He addressed them as queens. They weren't ratchet. They didn't come on a show and try to take over and tell him he's a fool. He addressed them as queens. Not every woman is a queen. Second, Kevin Samuels uplifted many women. He's helped so many people. As you'll hear, if you haven't already heard in this video, one of his platforms, his conglomerates was a business, a place, a venue to help couples get together, to create couples, to mend marriages. And that's what he did. He helped and rejuvenated marriages, brought couples together. And like I said, Kevin talked to the men before he ever talked to the women. For years, before he blew up, he was coming down harder on the men than he was the women. A lot of people don't know that. Go back and look at his earlier videos. The colognes, how to groom yourself, how to dress yourself. He used to tell men came on the show just like the women. I'm 30 years old. I can't seem to find women that find me attractive. I don't get callbacks, this, that, and the other. He said, you're 270 pounds. You're 5'6". You're broke. You're sitting home playing PlayStation. Who would want you? If I was a woman, I wouldn't want you. He was harder on the men than he was on the women. But you guys don't see that because those videos, and there were hundreds of them, were not in circulation as much as the women's videos. But he was harder on the men. Equal opportunity criticism and growth for both sexes.
If I could do it tonight, I want to do a live, and I want women in particular whose lives have been touched by Kevin in a positive way, you know, to call in, and for us to, women who actually believed in what he was doing, listened to what he said, and, you know, understand that, you know, he didn't always tell you what you wanted to hear, but he'd tell you what you needed to hear.
Well, for those people who think he was cruel, people who've been lied to their whole lives, they see the truth as cruelty. Kevin Samuels was accurate. He backed his statements up with facts from the CDC reports. In the Black community alone, 80% of the women have children out of wedlock. And that's being sired by 20% of the men. 51% of Black men don't have children. 31% of Black men are married and live with their wives. So that means there's about 18% of men, give or take, who's siring children with these women. And so he pointed that out.
And today we're going to be focusing on women. I don't want to hear anything about, well, not all, or the men do it too. We're grown people over here. That's not how we do that. 80% of Black women in this country are overweight. It's 8 out of 10. 800 out of 1,000. 8 million out of 10 million. That's ridiculous. And then when you get into that 80% of that number is obese. What are some of the typical talking points? Oh, well, those are those white folks standards. Right. Go back and look in your family album, and I guarantee you, you don't see no 250-pound big mamas back into the 1900s. It's the diet and it's the lack of exercise. That's really what it comes down to. And here's the thing. If you like your weight, if you love your body, hey, cool. I am not about, fat shaming or body shaming anybody. If you dig who you are, if you're a big, bold, loud, and proud, hey, man, knock yourself out. Good for you. But there are some women who've asked, what does it take to find a high-value guy? Or one of the guys who are your clients, or that kind of stuff. And I will say this. You will notice one thing with high-value men. With high-value men, the smaller the woman, the bigger the ring. This correlation is not causation. But you can also notice that with the increase in female weight in the Black community, there's also been a decrease in the marital rate. They map each other. They're inverse of each other. As weight has gone up, marriages have gone down. I'm not saying it's causation. It's simple correlation. I mean, if we can be honest and talk, to be a woman who's an 8, 9, or 10 in the face, that's what you're born with. Pretty, beautiful, or gorgeous. But that's what you're born with. You can't be, well, not every. One thing that the majority of human beings can do something about is their body. We're talking about a lifestyle that has a plant-based lifestyle, a plant-based diet. You eat more plants than meat, low carbs, low sugar, and active. I don't mean you just happen to have good genetics. I mean, you carry your butt to the gym 4 times a week. Why does this matter? Because high-value men, they're out there working 10, 12, 14-hour days. These guys tend to work out. There's a correlation. These guys are early risers, hard workers. They tend to work out and be in some sort of shape. They got to be an athlete for life. You cannot be an out-of-shape woman and qualify to get a high-value man. I'm sorry, ladies, this is just how it is.
He said that's why Black men aren't getting married. But see, the thing about Kevin Samuels that you all don't know is that his his vision, his legacy was going to expand past YouTube, advertising, where we would talk about men's clothing, fitness, suits, cologne, those colognes and things that he would advertise. Mm-hmm. He was doing that because he was getting paid for it. He was a brilliant businessman. And the fact that he was willing to speak the truth to people and was accurate about it, all that did was endear him to the rest of us who recognize the truth he was speaking. So for those people who are his detractors, listen to the man's podcast and you'll see he was speaking the truth. It's the reality that we live in now.
He was talking about getting yourself together, staying in shape. And that's one of the things he did. And that's why this is so shocking to so many people. Cardiac arrest, heart attack, and people are trying to wrap their heads around that. This is a man who taught many people how to live better, how to eat better. So as we wrap up, Dennis, what did he mean to you?
Well, man, we haven't had a voice of truth here in the United States in many years. Our preachers stopped speaking the truth. Our screenwriters and actors stopped speaking the truth to us. Our politicians stopped speaking the truth. We have a lot of panderers out there. And what Americans need, what the world needs, is truth speakers. Because here's the thing, a lot of us have been misled. You know, he was clearly a mentor to some. He was a father to others. They referred to him as the Godfather. He was that middle-aged 50-year-old man that many of these young folks didn't have, who would be honest with them. You know, he wasn't a man who was afraid to speak the truth. A well-studied, brilliant black man. The way he dressed, the way he carried himself with dignity. What you weren't going to do is cut him off on his podcast and interrupt him and treat him like he was a child. He commanded respect. But then when you would meet him in public, man, he didn't hide. He spoke to the people. He was more gracious than any of the actors or entertainers I've ever seen. They could learn a lesson from him.
The 2 years that I've watched Kevin Samuels' content, I've grown as a person, I've leveled up as a human being, and as a content creator. I implore you all to do the same thing. And don't look at things as black and white, big or small. Look at things as right and wrong, healthy, unhealthy. Goal, objective, and be on your way. Watch the man's podcast all the way through, and you will see a dictionary, a library, a myriad of self-help information that will allow African Americans to level up.